And I'm going to paste to the chat a link to that post where we'll post all of the meeting materials after the call. And that link, that chat also includes a link to our XMTP code of conduct, which we observe during this call. And we open up each dev call with that code of conduct because it reflects our community's commitment to creating spaces where everyone feels welcome, respected, and safe to share ideas and ask questions. So let's start off by just taking a quick glance at our agenda today. And you know what, we'll really just dive right in because we have a lot of amazing content to cover. And I'll just mention that we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions along the way, please go ahead and put them in the chat. You can access the chat in the bottom right corner of the Huddle One UI. Let us know if you have any trouble, accessing it. Just call out. And let's go ahead and kick it off with interoperability with Shane Mack, co-founder of XMTP.
Hey everyone, it's good to see everyone. I think I know most faces here. I'll keep mine really brief because we have a lot of great people speaking today, but the Frames adoption and excitement since it's launched and the Farcaster team put it out has kind of, I think, blown everyone away, blown us away, blown me away personally. Some of my favorite experiences in this entire space are now the frames and the interactions that I get by using it. I mean, William's on this call. I got William's newsletter this morning and I read it in Converse and I didn't leave the Converse app and I can just click through the frame and it summarizes it all. And seeing use cases like that just get me really, really excited. And our goal is to really align and stay aligned with the Farcaster spec so that developers can be able to have more reach, have a more open network to extend their reach for the frames they're already building and not have to do double work, and figure out the best way to support the entire ecosystem, support the entire Farcaster community and all the work that has been done, and work with the infrastructure providers to really allow developers to extend their frames, much further and work closer together with that whole community. And so it's been cool to work with all of the infrastructure providers. We have, David's here obviously from Frames.js. You have the Nanars, you have on-chain kit from Coinbase now supporting it, and then the Airstack team now adopting it. So developers are now able to build once, deploy everywhere. And I think when you see something as kind of impactful as Frames, and now thousands of developers to deploy across two, really great ecosystems like Farcaster and XMTP. I just think the innovation is going to be endless here. And so I'm just really, really excited to see how much is already happening. I'm so glad that everyone could join today. And for, me personally, just pushing the interoperability, the composability, the ability to work together so that this whole space kind of moves together, and not creating double work or not forcing it to be more complicated or not creating multiple standards, really staying aligned and trying to keep the Farcaster spec and the open frames really kind of going the same direction is, I think, very important for us to kind of move the whole ecosystem forward. So really excited for all the things I'm see being built. I love, getting my newsletters, but now also I've seen the frame board launching and it's hitting my Converse this morning that a board I followed has new updates and I can flip through it. It almost feels like a Pinterest meets the ability to own kind of and contribute to boards all happening within Converse app. And so there's just cool things happening and I just want to see a lot more of it. But I do want to just stress that interoperability, composability, and working together in an open way is just kind of the core of everything we're doing. So with that, I'll turn it over to the rest of us here.
Well, thanks so much, Shane. All right. And now next up, we have Frameworks with David Furlong. And I have to say that whenever I hear David's name, it's always followed with something like, we really want to hear what he has to say about this. So we're very lucky to have him join us today. So please take it away, David.
Hey, everybody. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I mean, we've been very deep on frames and everything around sort of mini apps for a while. We're working on Frames.js, which is a library and framework, and also a debugging tool for people to build frames. And that supports open frames and XMTP natively. The other thing we've been working on is helping apps that are integrating frames to display frames inside their apps. Um, and one of the challenges we've seen with this is, you know, there's both frames need to be backwards compatible, but sometimes the changes to frames and open frames aren't backwards compatible. So making sure that the frames work in every app and that we sort of make it easy for people to keep up with the standard is something we're trying to do better. And then we're also looking at how we can solve some other problems around frames. So, because frames are only around for the last 2 months, there's a lot of like performance issues with some frames break. Some frames, we've seen a little bit of this, thankfully not too much, but some frames are malicious. And so we're trying to figure out how we can make it easier for you if you're building an app that wants to include frames inside, like what pieces of infra might you need in order to do that. The other thing we've been cracking on is giving the Farcaster team feedback on the frame spec. So, for example, Action Frames just released a couple days ago. That was something we've been pushing for a couple months back, and so we are trying to make sure that the frame spec evolves in a way in which it works for the whole ecosystem and open frames, and like Shane says, to keep things consistent, so it's easy for devs to write frames once and then make them work everywhere. The other thing we've been pushing on is open frames. So we've been we've been drafting a way for open frames to work with wallets as well. And so hopefully that also enlarges the open frames ecosystem to have more frames that are built with it, and therefore more frames that work in XMTP as well. And yeah, in terms of what our roadmap is, we're working on just everything that makes the developer experience better for frames. So if you have any feedback or issues, if you're either building a frame or you're a client builder and you have some strong opinions about something, or you have some info that you think is missing, very happy to put our team on it and try and make it easier for you. Just send me a message. I think this Huddle app has my ENS, so you can just message me on XMTP, which is always nice, the interoperability there. In terms of other things, if you have some sort of concerns or you want an opinion on where you think frames are going, we have very strong opinions about this. One of the things that I think is coming and that I think is a massive opportunity is the way transactions work in frames right now, where you sort of link to a separate app, a bit like Wallet Connect. We don't think that will be the dominant form of payment in frame. So we think something like Mint with Warps is going to be extended to something like Pay with Warps. We've been pushing for this for a while. It looks like the Farcaster team is now working on this. And what that will enable is a couple things. One, it will be risk-bounded transactions for users in frames. So instead of still having to look at transaction simulation, and the user potentially losing all their wallet funds, they will only risk the amount they pay, which I think is massive. The second one is being able to easily enable it in your app without linking to a wallet should enable higher conversion for frame transactions. And the third one is having sort of currency agnostic frame transactions. So the user shouldn't have to have USDC on Zora or a specific chain and have to bridge. And so I think this paradigm of sort of Mint with Warps or something like that will be sort of 95% of transactions, and that will be transformative for crypto UX. And so that's sort of where we think this is going. And that, I think, is one of the major unlocks still coming for Frames. The other thing that we think is going to come for Frames is richer interaction for the media. So how do you actually play a rich game within a frame? So those are some things we're trying to steer Farcaster towards. Yeah, besides that, I mean, we're very deep on everything in the space. Again, if you have any questions or if you're building a frame and you need support, feel free to reach me on XMTP. In terms of Frames.js, you can learn more about it at framesjs.org. There's also two other libraries that I think are pretty good. On-Chain Kit, which is by the base team, which is less opinionated. And then Frog as well is another alternative. Yeah, the benefit with what we're working on is we're building open frames straight in because we're trying to push that as well. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any thoughts or you want frames to work in a certain way.
Thanks so much for that, David. All right. And next up, we have messaging apps with Pol, co-founder of Converse Messenger. And if you have ever used Converse Messenger, I think you'll have a great appreciation for how fortunate we are to have Pol speaking on this topic today. So please take it away, Pol.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jiha. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Cool. Great. I think I'll also know most of the faces here. So glad to see you all. Hi to everyone who can watch it afterwards. Yeah, well, so I want to focus on frames, of course, today, but like I want to go back to like what Converse is about, what XMTP is about, and to me, frames are mainly like an extension of what our technologies stand for. So Converse is a messaging app that is based on the XMTP network. Basically, what we want to do is connect people in a private manner, like everyone in the world. We believe that we should all communicate via free, open standards, open protocols, which are definitely not what we communicate with today. And so we believe that everyone should be free, like users, developers, etc., which is definitely not what happens today. So in the world that we envision, users can choose the protocol that they want to communicate on, the app that they use in order to communicate, the client that they use, and they should all be able to talk to each other even if they do not make the same choices. And like XMTP is definitely enabling that. With Converse, we are trying to propose a client, and if people want to use another client, that's fine. Like that's the whole story around it. And for developers, my take is that it's exactly the same. Developers should be able to build on top of protocols, social networks, whether they are public or private, and still have trust that they will not be robbed. And frames are one of the amazing examples of how it can work as sort of like legal components that can be used in order to enhance people's experience, give distribution to developers while maintaining trust for everyone. And so yeah, so this is the high level view of all of it. And if we go like specifically into the messaging part, what's amazing to me is that messaging, if you think of it in Web 2, didn't evolve over the last 15 years. Like I like to say that the only innovation that happened was stickers, and it's cool. Like stickers are cool. I use it every day, but like you can do better. We are talking about the thing that is the most intimate for people. If there was only one thing to keep in digital world, it would be means of communication between people, because that's just like a very fundamental need for humans. And it didn't evolve over the last 15 years. And to me, there are two reasons. The first one is that WhatsApp and other like Telegram, etc., they have their like walled garden, and they are incentivized not to do anything, not to change, not to take risks, because the moment they do it, they might lose users. And because there is no competition and they have their own networks, they are literally incentivized not to move. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, and the second reason they are not innovating on how people can actually communicate with their loved ones or business partners or this sort of thing, is that creates another thing, which is that they do not let other developers enter. WhatsApp is incredible. Like, you have to kind of get a license in order to use WhatsApp as a developer. And the reason, and the fact that they create these walled gardens creates something that, like, lets developer be afraid of that, and developers do not innovate for people and do not get the distribution. So basically, what I believe is that in the next 10 years, whether it's Converse, XMTP, or any other actor, what's going to happen is that we are going to break those walls, and we are going to re-enchant, put, like, joy, utility, and other things into people's personal communications, private communications. And so, yeah, this is what I wanted to introduce with that, because frames are just an amazing thing that Farcaster created in order to embody the fact that you can, as a social network, whether it's public or private, let other developers, if you give them the right frameworks, the right standards, you can let them innovate and have fun on top of something that actually people use every day, because people spend their times on social networks. So why not actually come there and, as a developer, use this sort of real estate in order to give people a great user experience. And so this is what Frames is about. It's permissionless, and the genius of it is that it gives a clear framework for developers in order to innovate. And I truly believe that creativity comes from constraints, and the fact that it's constrained to, like, a few buttons, somehow, like just an image or this sort of thing, and maybe it will evolve over time, is the reason why developers are so creative on this. And I think we should, like, multiply this sort of, like, um, standards for creativity for developers in a trustless and permissionless manner. And so, this is the reason why we actually, like, didn't wait, and we integrated it within Converse right from the beginning, because, again, like, that's all part of the vision. We've been thinking, to be honest, like, Farcaster did a great job, and, like, we were thinking before, like, how can we let developers, jump into people's DMs while keeping privacy, and like, create some, like, betting things, things that could emotionally bring things for people, like stickers, but, like, times 10, 100, this sort of thing. And frames are a great example of how you can do that. So we are amazed by that, and we see it as one of the legal tools that developers can have in order to use the real estate that we are creating for them, in our case, in the private communications. I will take just, like, 2 minutes to finish, to give you, like, a few thoughts about that. I think that frames on the private context manner are great for one thing, and it's actually something that developers do not leverage that much for now. It's actually a way for the developers to create mini social apps within, for now, two people, a conversation between two people, and tomorrow a conversation between groups. And when you think about it, it's mind blowing. Like, as a developer, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to, like, create the complexity of letting people connect with each other, etc., etc. The group is there. Imagine a group of friends. They are already talking on Converse or whatever, like, other XMTP client. Like, it's not Converse related. It's something. And so basically, Fabri tells me that I should be a bit faster. Sorry, I will end with that. So this is what's amazing, is that you can create mini social experiences. And the example with rock, paper, scissors that we built is just one example, but it's permissionless social apps within conversations. I will let the developers actually create something with that. And just to end with, again, frames are just one example. Let's not focus only on the feature, on the tech. Frames is one standard to let developers permissionlessly create things. But you can think of like, so transactional frames will come. Quick actions that actually Farcaster created will be amazing when you think of like quick action regarding that are related to a message, like tip someone because he or she said something amazing. This sort of thing within groups, we are just like scratching the surface, and I think like with groups we will be very creative also on how to let people create programmatic groups in a trustless manner. And so this is the direction that we have to take. Sorry, Fabri, if I was a bit long. Sorry, everyone, if like I don't know, I kind of let you fall asleep. But like I'm so excited about that. I could talk about it for ages. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you have questions, we can talk later.
Thanks so much, Paul. It's infectious, your enthusiasm. So thanks for that. And now we have transaction support with Nick, who is an XMTP core developer, aka OG. Please take it away, Nick.
Thanks. So Stefan and David put up a proposal for adding transactions to the OpenFrames spec. We're really excited about the proposal, and we're going to be doing some work to support it. The initial support just requires a few changes to some of the open source repos that Frames developers on XMTP are already using. We're going to be adding support for proxying transaction info in the proxy and proxy client, since user privacy is a non-negotiable for us, and anyone using OpenFrames should have their IP hidden from the Frames developers. We're going to add the types into our existing OpenFrames types repo, and we're going to update the XMTP Frames client to support transactions. And so that is going to make transaction frames possible in XMTP and in other OpenFrames apps. But what about making them safe? Client apps are the ones who are ultimately responsible for assessing whether a transaction is safe or not. We're expecting apps to be very conservative about this in the early days. We don't want anyone to get rugged using XMTP. I think it is good for the entire Frames ecosystem if users are not scared when they are interacting with transactional frames, that they trust that the apps are protecting them. And there's a number of ways you can do this: for transaction simulation, allow lists. We think as apps start to implement these safety checks, we have a role to help facilitate knowledge sharing, just like we did around spam detection as spam started to come up on the XMTP network. We want to know what's working, what's not working, and if there are shared resources that can be created to make every app using transactional frames safer. Maybe it's a list of known safe frame URLs or frame domains, list of known safe smart contracts. The entire ecosystem benefits if all the apps using transaction frames are safe. And so really excited to see what developers do with this, really excited to get this out there and into all the apps that are already using frames with XMTP. I'll pass it back to you, Jehan.
You're on mute, Jehan.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks very much, Nick. Really important to hear that message, especially in this community setting. And next, I'll hand it over to Fabri Deverell at XMTP to talk about awesome open frame.
Hey, yeah. So I'm sharing the link, and let me tell you what happened on the last hackathon, the frameworks hackathon from Meet Global. So Open Frames had a bounty. The bounty was basically make your frames compatible with Open Frames. Again, Open Frames is an extension. We're not trying to replace. We're not trying to add more friction. So it's basically the same experience as you will have developing for traditional frames using, for example, frameworks like Frames.js. Open Frames is already embedded into these frameworks, so the experience is basically you don't have added effort except for adding some meta tags. And of course, if you want your transactions to be handled by different apps like Converse, then you do need to put in some extra code or like replacement code. I'm not verifying a Farcaster ID, I'm verifying a Lens ID, for example, or an XMTP address. So we had more than 100 submissions to this open bounty, and from all those 100, we selected 2 of the more we know them from the community. These are really talented developers, and I want to introduce 2 projects that they built for this hackathon specifically. One is Wordle. We all know the game Wordle. Well, we have Dusan here, who has developed this, has adapted this game as a frame. So I'm going to introduce first to Dusan. Dusan, would you like to showcase what you built for the hackathon?
Hey everybody. I actually haven't participated in the hackathon, but Paul was actually bugging me since, I don't know, maybe a month ago, to port my Framedl, which is the Wordle in a frame, to support open frames, which I did maybe at the time when the global hackathon was actually taking place. Should I share my screen? Is that preferable? I hope it's gonna work.
Oh, sure. Feel free.
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay, wait. This should be it. It doesn't work.
It was there for a moment, and then it went away.
Yeah, it's really difficult to find it here. It's a weird screen sharing dialog. Do you see it? No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there it is.
All right. So, welcome to Framedl. This is the open Framedl, which is supported both on Farcaster and XMTP. You can play basically 2 variants: the daily one, which I already played today, so I don't want to spoil the daily word if in case you want to play it. But we can take a look at the random one. Sorry about my internet connection; it's a little bit slower today. So yeah, classic Wordle interface, and you just basically type in your words. I'm not gonna spoil my usual starting words, so I'll start with something completely different. I hope it doesn't take long. What can be? You can maybe help me.
No pressure. Let's see.
No. Crust, let's say. No. This is the worst. Clink, let's say clink.
We have some comments. Curve,
or probably not. Claim.
We have someone said claim.
No. We already
clean.
Oh, let's say clean, whatever. It's not gonna be that, but
the N is not there.
Yeah.
Close.
Okay, clay. clay. Huh.
Only 2 shots remaining. Come on.
Clay something. Clef? Is it a word? No. Clack? Ah. Oh, wow. I didn't even know that. Okay.
Nice. New word learned.
Yeah. And at the end, you can also check the leaderboard, which actually shows the leaderboard for the daily word. This is on Farcaster, as it runs on Farcaster, but for XMTP, you would see a different leaderboard. It's actually not played that much, as we have the original Farcaster version that's being played there, and also lately I've been working on the Pro version, which is something that we want to play for degen prices. So yeah, that was my frame. But if you're interested, you can basically just check out the openframedl.versal.app, paste it in your Converse app, and just play around. There's one more frame I built for open frames, and I can post the link as well. And I will pass my word to someone with something that with some frame that doesn't get stuck on a long guessing game.
Thank you, Dusan. Thank you for making the time. I
Yeah.
know you have a newborn in your house, so
Oh yeah, I'm
congratulations for
just
that.
putting pacifier in her mouth.
Yeah, I think it was that was improvised and it was really fun. We didn't expect it to be playing Wordle all at once, so that was really fun. Thank you. So next one is Limon. He built a bot that uses frames and is also a bot about mints in Sora. So Limon, would you like to showcase your frame bot?
Yeah, for sure. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you guys for inviting me. I guess I'll share my screen. Nothing complex, like the frame per se is not as complex as the Wordle one, but I think it's cool on the interoperability side of things. Because as Fabri mentioned, I built a bot, an XMTP bot that is integrated with a frame, and with Fabri, we're probably going to build more of this. This bot that I built, the first one, it's something that has to deal with the TrendingMints. So basically, you can say hi to this bot. Let's hope that my internet connection helps me. This is running locally, so yeah. When I say hi to the bot, it prompts me with three options. So how often would I like to receive new mints? And I can decide like right away, so every hour or every 6 hours or once a day. Let's get with the first option, and the bots starts subscribes me to this like scheduled trending means. So every hours I will be receiving new trending means happening on base thanks to Airstack. And I created like this frame where you can also visualize the NFT image, how many mints there's been in the last hour, and also the name. And of course, you can go on Zora to mint it. So like the frame per se, it's a simple link that gets the chain information, the address of the NFT, and also the number of mints. It's just a cool way to show the NFT to the users on the platform. And maybe once the transactions will be integrated in open frames, the user will also be able to mint this NFT directly um, from the chat in Converse, let's say, or Coinbase Wallet. And again, like all this stuff, it's open source. If you want to have a look at the code of both like the bot and the frame, feel free to reach out, and I will be building more. I'm not sure, Fabri, if I can spoil what we're cooking behind the scenes, or if you want to wait a couple of days more. But yeah, like that's pretty much it. It's cool to build this stuff again with interoperable technology. Like I mean, there's XMTP here, Airstack for like data reading, open frames and Frames.js, of course, to render these frames. Um, so amazing to be able to put together all these Lego blocks and build something inside a chat app. Yeah, very exciting.
Okay. Thank you, Limon. We have seen Limon in many hackathons building really high quality projects. So it's always good to have you. And we think that there is a lot of potential for bots mixed with marketplaces and minting and NFTs. So yeah, I think that's awesome. And last but not least, and this was also not improvised, but early this morning or later last night, Lens has announced something, and I'm going to allow Andrew from the Avara and Lens team, which is also known as Defi Spartan, to tell us all the good news.
Yeah, so hey everybody. As Fabri said, yesterday I actually published a Lens improvement proposal to propose a standard for basically all Lens applications to conform to open frames. And so what this would allow is that essentially anybody could post an open frame inside of a Lens application, and then the frame server would actually be able to validate that the user who is clicking these buttons, performing the actions, is a specific Lens profile. And we think that this is going to unlock a ton of really creative use cases. I guess specifically the things that I'll highlight, kind of like why Lens might be an interesting platform to build frames on top of, is that Lens is essentially an on-chain sandbox. So every aspect of the social stack, from profiles to the actual publications to modules, which are essentially pieces of code attached to publications, all of these things are handled directly on-chain. Which means that if you have support for frames within Lens applications, you can now do a more wider variety of actions actually directly on chain. I think that was mentioned earlier about the sort of transaction frame spec. This is a really powerful thing to enable essentially users to execute transactions from within a social feed. And we would actually like to extend this a lot within Lens and utilize a lot of the features of Lens. So specifically adding social context to actions. So I'm not sure if people are familiar, but Lens has this concept of collecting, which is basically that when you create a post, anyone else is able to attach conditions to this. It might be free. You might have to pay a certain token. You might have to match a certain condition, like only followers are able to collect this post. But this is just one example of essentially a module that developers are able to build into the Lens feed. And there's actually a ton of different use cases that can be built with these modules. Things like minting NFTs and then attributing fees for basically the person that created the post, the person that mirrored this post, the application where it appears. So essentially just allowing to attribute all of the different participants which are making this transaction possible. And I think, something that I'd really like to highlight is something that Paul mentioned, which is that the creativity of like sort of builders really comes from constraints. And I think that really one of the constraints of Lens so far has been that we've basically given people too many things to build with. You can build any action, you can build any application, and it's kind of difficult for builders to zone in on exactly what they want to build. And we're really hoping with kind of this open frame spec that will give users a more well-defined set of constraints so that if I build this particular action and I expose it as an open frame, it'll be able to be executed on not only Lens, but any front end which recognizes these open frames. So we're really excited to publish this out, and we'll be working in the next couple of weeks to publish more guides about exactly how this works within Lens, adding support for different client libraries like Frames.js, OnChainKit, Frog, and also just getting support for the spec across all of the different Lens apps and developers. So excited to announce this.
Amazing. You heard it here first. Thanks so much for sharing. All right. Well, everyone, before we head into the Q&A, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of our this was going to be a really amazing reveal, and now it's kind of dorky now. I just wanted to shall we take a moment to thank all of our speakers today. What a wonderful sharing and time for community today. So I really appreciated every share out. And I also wanted to take a moment to thank Fabri, XMTP, DevRel, for bringing together all of the amazing speakers. Fabri did all of the work to bring people together here, to the expertise to share today. And it really is the definition of developer relations. So thank you, Fabri. And of course, thanks to Rochelle and Eric from our content and go-to-market team for your amazing work in getting the word out about today's Frames-O-RAMA. So thank you so much for that. And I am opening up the floor for any Q&A that anyone would like to bring up. And I'm also going to add into our chat a survey, just one required question about giving us feedback about the call today. If you'd like to share anything, any thoughts.
I think there is one big question that I had is when Hey will support Frames, and they just said that there is a PR open in Hey, so that's really exciting. When we say Hey, we are talking about X-Lenster, right? The main client for Lens protocol. So all open frames apparently are going to be working there maybe this week. That's super exciting. And maybe a question I can ask that I know many people want to know is what's the expected time for transactions working in open frames, right? When is it going to happen?
Yeah, I guess I can answer that. Basically, within the lens spec that was published, I actually used basically the draft version of Open Frames that included these transaction elements. So we're hoping that basically the first version of lens frames that are published can support these transactions. And we're also doing some thinking about how they can support not only transactions, but also signing messages and doing messages without signing. This is one of the core features of Lens that basically users don't have, that even though things can happen on chain, users don't have to explicitly sign or do these things. And that was actually a section that I tried to add to the spec, is trying to theorize about how exactly that these can work. We actually think that it could be possible without any changes to the spec, essentially just using the transaction and then interpreting what the message should be based off of that. So yeah, we're really hoping that basically we can be a first pioneer of kind of using transactions within the open frame spec.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from the group? Any other questions? And of course, we can continue the discussion in the discussion forum if thoughts come up after the call.
I have a quick question. What's the best resource to stay up to date with all of these new developments and innovations around frames and XMTP?
Seems that their links sometimes break, but Awesome Open Frames is a great resource right now for seeing what's happening across the whole Open Frames ecosystem. And there is also Awesome Frames from David that's more focused right now on Farcaster, and hopefully one day they get merged because they are all the same.
A great question.
I have one question. So I was talking to Fabri last week, and I really wanted to use like OpenFlames logo, and there was none that I could use. Fabri and I had a chat saying that, hey, GitHub logo that GitHub has created one by default. It's good enough, but is it? Let's be very honest. So is there something we need, something we should use? I'm open for ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm happy to take the lead on that. If there is a strong demand, I think it should stay pretty simple.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Happy to help in any way if I can as a designer.
Great, great. Maybe David, Derek, team up on it. All right. Well, shall we call it a wrap, folks? Frames-O-RAMA? Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining, everyone. And again, there is a link to the community forum post where we'll post all of the meeting materials from this call. And then we'll have another edition of our dev community call in 2 weeks. And you should be seeing a invite and news about it coming through the same channels. All right. So good to see all of you. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.